In today's episode, I bring you a story of Paula Leeson, a wealthy heiress whose life was taken during a vacation in Denmark. Her death, initially ruled as an accident, would later be revealed as a calculated murder by her husband, Donald McPherson. As we go through the case, we uncover a tale of deception, fraud, and greed. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Love and Murder, the midweek mini edition. I am your host, Kai, and if you're new here, hi, welcome, and thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast after you've listened to this episode and if you like what you hear. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Go ahead and join if you want bonus episodes, case extras, a community of like-minded lambs, and to be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/love and murder. Now let's get into this midweek mini. Paula Leeson, who was 47 at the time of this case, was the daughter of a successful businessman in Manchester, UK. She met Donald McPherson, who was 51 at the time of this case, in 2013. When Donald met Paula, he told her that he was from New Zealand and he was a successful property developer. He also said that he was an orphan. She then divulged to him that she already had a child from a previous relationship, and he assured her that this wasn't going to be a problem for him. The couple had a whirlwind romance and married in 2014. Their wedding comprised of a lavish ceremony in Peckforton Castle in Cheshire. The family described the affair as, quote, no expenses were spared. Now, despite Don's claims of wealth, in reality, he was in deep financial trouble. But he did hide this from Paula. Paula, on the other hand, didn't have any money problems. She actually had a share in her family's skip hire business, and at that time, and probably now, it was doing quite well. So if you're like me and didn't know what a skip hire business is, not to worry, I looked it up for us. A skip hire business is a waste management company that rents out skip bins, or in the US we call them dumpsters, to help people and businesses dispose of waste. So if they're building a house or doing construction on a business or whatever, the little dumpster bins that's on the side, they're the ones who brings those bins out, takes it away, empties it, and all of that. So that, I guess, over in the UK, they call it a skip hire business. Over here, we call it, I don't know what it's called. What is it? A trash removal company or a junk removal company? Something like that. That's what we call it over here. Trash hauling. So trash removal, junk removal, trash hauling, something like that. I'm looking on my cell phone as I'm saying this. So now that we know what that is, on with the story. The cracks in their relationship and Dawn's character were apparent to her family, who later told Paula of this. But she was in love, so you know how some people are. They're in love, they don't listen. I mean, you can't really blame them. It is what it is. We all make mistakes in life. I know I've been with people and, people have told me, oh, this person isn't good for you, and I didn't listen, so who am I to judge? In June 2017, the couple took a vacation to Denmark. One day, during that vacation, Paula's body was found face down in a pool that was only 4 feet deep. Dawn claimed to have woken up to find her floating face down in the water. When Paula's father, Willie, received a phone call about his daughter's death, his reaction was immediately, quote, he's killed her. Then the rest of the family agreed with him. To them, Paula drowning in a shallow pool was completely unbelievable. Number one, she was 5'5". It was 4 feet. So unless she was drunk or, when I say drunk, I mean unbelievably drunk or, I don't know, drugged or something, how? Did you break her legs? How? Next, she was a very experienced swimmer. So again, that doesn't make sense. Finally, she was a very healthy woman. So it's not like she had a heart attack and then just laid down and drowned in the pool. So basically what they're saying is she could have just stood up in the pool. And even if she couldn't, she was a good swimmer. So even if something was wrong with her legs, she could have swam to the side just using her arms. So none of it made sense to them. Neville Leeson, who was Paulie's brother, remembered meeting Dawn, and his first thoughts about meeting him was, quote, it was like he had dropped from space when he met Paula. He had no friends. He said he was from a foster home and he had and he never had any parents. End quote. So her brother's just thinking like, you just seem suspicious and vague, like nothing you're saying has any concrete proof and we can't look you up. However, it wasn't until Paula's death that the truth about who Don was came out. Now, first of all, his name wasn't actually Don. It was Alexander James Lang. And he was born in New Zealand, so I guess that's the first truth. Paula's family found out that he had been living under multiple identities and had a long history of fraud convictions. 32 fraud convictions, to be clear, and this was over the course of 3 different countries. He had also been jailed for his involvement in an £11.8 million bank fraud scheme in Germany. £11.8 million. How? Quote, we found out he wasn't the man he said he was. He wasn't the orphan from New Zealand. He had parents, siblings, a whole life that he had hidden from us. Actually, when I say siblings, he had like a brother and a sister or something like that. He had 2 other siblings. And even with law enforcement, the amount of times he changed his whole identity, he was nicknamed, quote, Walter Mitty. The family also found out that right before Paula's death, Don had taken out 14 secret life insurance policies on her, with a total payout of £3.5 million, or around $4.5 million. Now, I do want to point out that in some places I did see that the actual amount was 7 million, so I don't know if it was 3.5 or 7. So to them, with these policies, obviously he's trying to get money, and they can see that some of these policies actually had her name forged on it. You could clearly tell it was her forged name, naming him as the beneficiary of all of the policies, and this just happened literally right before she died. Then after she died, like days after, he started transferring large sums of money from her account into his account to pay off his debts. Then another thing that they found out, and this is all with the help of investigators, another thing that they found out was that like a week after she had died, he joined a bereavement group called the Widowed and Young. Basically, it was the quote, Tinder for widows. Then one of the most shocking things that her family found out was that he had been married before. Yes, he had a wife and a kid who both died in a house fire. Now, although his previous wife and child died in a house fire, I didn't see anything suggesting that he had a life insurance policy on them and he was paid out with that life insurance. And I did search. So all I know is he had a wife and a kid before and they died in a house fire and nobody had known this. So in April of 2020, he was charged with murder. And in 2021, this went to trial. So the court was told that Donald was struggling financially at the time, even though you may have seen him walking around with wads of cash in like rubber bands and in his pockets. He actually was broke. The prosecution said that Donald was actually, quote, running out of money, which is why this, quote, supercharged the financial motive for him. They also told the court that Donald showed, quote, almost no upset or remorse over the death of his wife. And they explained how quickly he moved on, trying to find another woman. Immediately, how he transferred money and was using that money to pay off his debts. And they also heard about the insurance. Quote, the central issue still stands. What happened in Denmark? It is not an issue. The cause of death was drowning. The only issue is the manner of death. It is the manner of death that causes the death to be unlawful. Then they pointed out that the only thing that they can see is that she was unconscious when she entered the water, because otherwise, they said her, quote, natural reaction would have been to, just simply stand up and save herself. Quote, therefore, she must have gone into the water unconscious. We do say it probably was a chokehold or a neck hold. The defense came back and said that no, Donald was sleeping when his wife drowned. And he claims that he's not guilty. He went on vacation with his wife. He was sleeping. He woke up. He found her face down in the pool, just like he said. Now, before the trial could be concluded, and this is still in 2021, it was paused by Judge Mr. Justice Goose. Do you in the UK call your judge Mr. as well as judge? Because over here we'll just say Judge Justice Goose. But in the research I did, they kept saying his name was Judge Mr. Justice Goose. It just sounds like salutation, 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 last name. But anyway, tell me, do y'all call them Judge Mr. or is this just like a typo or something? I don't know. Anyway, Judge Mr. Justice Goose paused the trial and actually overturned it. He said that there was insufficient evidence for the jury to convict Don. He said everything that was being brought to his attention was actually circumstantial evidence, and he couldn't see anywhere that an accidental death couldn't be ruled out. Which my thing is, isn't that for the jury to decide? Like, you're telling the jury what they don't have, but that's for the jury to decide. They could have said, we're going to go ahead and throw out this case. We can't make a decision because to us, everything is circumstantial evidence. And it sounds like an accidental death, but you didn't even let it get to that. You paused the trial and then made a unilateral decision and said that the jury wasn't going to have enough evidence. Everything you're saying is circumstantial and we're not going to do this case, so we're going to throw it out. That's crazy. He actually told the court that there were two possibilities on how Paula died. He said first, Don could have restrained his wife underwater or overpowered her in a struggle and pushed her down into the water to drown. Or second, she drowned by accident. She could have tripped, fallen, hit her head, fainted, everything like that, and fallen into the water and drowned. Quote, whilst the first of those alternatives is clearly more likely, that does not mean that a jury on the face of the pathological evidence alone could be sure of it. Basically, I know the jury heard that Paula suffered 13 separate injuries, but also that could have come from being restrained while being drowned, or it could have come from resuscitation efforts. So the prosecution came forward and was like, Your Honor, the death may have looked like a tragic accident, but I'm telling you, it was pre-planned murder by Don. However, the judge still stuck with his ruling and the case was thrown out. Of course, the family was distraught, as I would have been. I think I would have jumped over the barrier and tried to attack Don, but that is what the judge deemed. And I don't understand why he would stop the trial to say this is circumstantial and just throw it out. This is why we have a jury. What do they think based on the evidence that we're bringing to them? But I guess all the evidence that you're bringing to them is all circumstantial evidence, not hard evidence. So I don't know. However, despite this setback, the family did not give up. They launched a civil case to stop Dawn from inheriting her £4.4 million estate. So in this new trial, the prosecution, which is the family's lawyers, argued that Paula could have easily stood up in the shallow end of the pool, even if she had fallen in. So this showed that she was definitely unconscious when she entered the water. They also told the court that the injuries that she sustained were consistent with the use of force or violence. They heard everything that was presented in the previous court. The only difference is this is a different judge. And I guess they're asking for something different, which is don't let him get her £4.4 million estate. So at the end of this trial, this judge, Mr. Justice Smith, ruled that Dawn deliberately and unlawfully killed Paula. He said in his ruling that it was done by compressing her in an arm lock and placing her in the pool. He also told the court that, quote, lies and dishonesty pervade every aspect of Dawn's life. Dawn lied repeatedly to this court. Dawn's lies are accompanied by secrecy. So this judge ruled guilty, but the only thing that it ruled guilty and the end result was that he couldn't inherit this estate. It wasn't really a murder trial. Because even if it was, guess where Don was? He wasn't even in the UK anymore. Right after they had found him not guilty, this dude got immediately on a boat, train, on the back of a humpback whale, whatever, and left the country. Nobody knows where he is. They believe he's under a fake name, but they don't know what, they don't know who, where, why, and how. They think he's in South Pacific, possibly French Polynesia, Fiji, stuff like that. But again, they don't know. Neville issued a warning to the public saying that anybody who comes across Don should stay away. Quote, the most important thing is that we want people to stay away from him because he's very, very dangerous. If anyone sees him, you need to be extremely careful, but if you do, please let us know. He's dangerous, and we don't want anyone else to go through what we've been through. Paula's family continues to appeal to try and reopen the criminal case. This time, Neville says that he has new evidence from Paula's laptop that could help in a new trial and could definitely prosecute Don. But the problem is they have to have Don in the first place. Which do they? Couldn't they still go through this trial, use his defense, find him guilty or whatever, and then try and locate him to extradite him back to the UK? Does he actually need to be there? Because they already know the facts from the first trial. So does he actually need to be there? What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments below. So basically, it appears, and I'm going to say allegedly since the case is still ongoing, it appears that Paula was murdered. She had those 13 bruises on her, including one of her neck, but the first judge still ruled that out, saying that that could have happened when they were doing compressions, because you know how usually when you're trying to do CPR on somebody, you're compressing the crap out of their neck with both hands around their neck, or even an arm around their neck, trying to compress that air to go down their air pipe. You know how you do CPR, right? Okay, so they said that those neck wounds could have been due to compression, and all the other wounds were discussed away. Also, it could have been from CPR. It could have been from pulling her out of the pool, whatever. So it could have been either or. So that's why they ruled that everything was circumstantial. And although you can clearly see that he forged how many different insurance documents, like a week before she died, also that's circumstantial, because him and her could have gone out and say, hey, you never know what's going to happen in a week. So let's sign away 15, I forgot the number, like 12, whatever, different life insurance policies, and a woman with 4.4 million estate and still a good business with her family. That it sounds like that's what she would do with somebody that she just married. I mean, it sounds totally plausible, right? So although they had that forgery, so I guess, I don't know, she was having like a stroke at the time she was signing. So that could be argued away too, why it didn't look like her exact signature, because she was having a stroke, which then that stroke led her to a week later to fall into the pool unconscious. It's all adding up to me, you know? Like, I don't understand what that judge was thinking. Seriously. It's like, even though, yes, the evidence is circumstantial, like it's not like you didn't actually see Don signing the paper himself, but come on. Where do you think all these things, listen, oh my God. So anyway, the second judge had more sense, deemed it as guilty, but they brought him to court for something else. Well, they brought the situation to court for something else. So they got that blocked. So he can't just take out of her estate, but they can't do anything further because this dude pieced out of the country and nobody knows where he is. This is a crazy case. I'm going to put it in the pile to keep a lookout on. I hope they still take it to trial without Don even being there. I hope that's something you can do. Not really sure. What do y'all think about this? Let me know. Do you think that they could bring this trial to court without him being there, because they originally did a trial before? So they don't really need him there, in my opinion. I mean, just bring all the evidence that you brought. I don't know, but I guess if he's not there, they can't bring forth new evidence without him being there to defend himself. I'm not sure. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm going to put out a poll. Do you think that she was murdered, or do you think this was an accidental death? These are the options that you have to choose from. And that is all I have for you in this midweek mini. Once again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to share this episode with everyone you know and everyone you don't, as this is a free and easy way to help out Love and Murder. And other than that, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.